More of the same usually just gets you more of the same. Quantum leaps cannot be achieved through incremental steps or through more of the same. You've got to shift gears, you have to follow new patterns of thought and action, and the rules of what works and what doesn't will always change when you are trying to make a move forward from normal performance to U squared. I was sitting on a plane on my way back from a trip, and I was delayed for about 3 hours, and then I finally decided about an hour and a half in to pick this book up that I promised myself I was going to finish by the end of this trip. This book is called You Too by Pritchett, and I was so focused on making sure that my product Flow and Focus was validated before committed to putting it out there and putting myself out there, and I actually stopped following through with like my own life. My life became Flow and Focus. And back in February, I believe, I decided to order a physical copy of Flow and Focus because at first it was a PDF. So I downloaded a prototype copy, and as soon as the book hit my hands, I literally instantly fell in love with it. I mean, all the hard work, all of that self-doubt finally in my hands, and the book was really, really good for it to be a prototype, right? But for some reason, I still couldn't let myself be seen releasing it. I couldn't let myself put it out there because I still thought in my head, like, what if I just wrote something and spent so much time and energy on writing something that doesn't even land? I felt like I needed that proof first, so I feel like I needed the proof. I feel like I needed it to be validated, and I needed to know it was like going to work. I needed safety in knowing it was going to work before I decided to put myself out there and risk being vulnerable for failure in front of, you know, the internet, really, anyone, right? And it wasn't until this chapter that everything started to click for me. Focus on ends rather than means. You don't have to know how you're going to get there, but you need to know where you want to go. It is crucial to have a crystal clear picture of what you want to accomplish. Operate with a sharply defined mental image of the outcome you seek. Rivet your attention on that spot where you are to land at the end of your quantum leap. Visualize that arrival. When you do that, it's like you magnetize yourself to the ways and means involved in that methodology for getting there. The solutions begin to appear and answers come to you. If you start worrying about everything that will be involved in getting from here to there, you are bound to bog down in questions about methodology. People always get hung up in the how-to aspects regarding a quantum leap. Skip it. The answers will come to you, and when they do, you probably will find them to be simple, streamlined solutions. See, a quantum leap is a move you're already prepared to make. You just haven't done it yet. You have the potential, the resources are available, the opportunity is there. What has been missing is your decision to go for it. Maybe this will help you frame the situation a lot better. Quantum leap is something you've been keeping from happening. It is not something you have to struggle to make happen. You don't really force it into existence, you just let it occur. The key is not to get in the way. A quantum leap is the unexpected that comes to you with sudden grace. You can open yourself up to such a breakthrough. You can even invite it, but you can't make it happen by struggling harder or insisting on developing the perfect plan. U squared is achieved through an intuitive, instinctive discovery process based on a sense of direction and pursuit. If you have the answers and structure and certainty up front, it's not a quantum leap. The formula does not involve getting everything nearly organized and all the risks eliminated before you make your move. There is an element of hip shooting involved here. Don't count on having all the procedural issues for the journey buttoned down before you even begin the trip. This is where I decided to annotate because this is what stuck out to me the most. You must be willing to tolerate ambiguity, confusion, possibly even chaos for a while, shaping your plan as you go. Allow some disorder in your life. If you get too concerned with the step-by-step plan of action to be followed, you'll find yourself brooding over the potential problems and roadblocks that could be encountered. For now, all you need is an aiming point and action. A quantum leap, by definition, means moving into uncharted territory with no guide to follow. You personally draw the map as you go. Look at it this way. You're not supposed to be concerned about what happens in the middle of a jump. You're supposed to be thinking about where you're going to land. Whew. That was a handful. All that to say is, it hit me that I had been living in the past of my life, trying to relive a lot of things that happened and a lot of lessons I learned. I'm trying to dig all these, insights and tips up, all these revelations that I've experienced earlier in my self-development journey, and all in the name of staying consistent and posting and putting my book out there, right? But I think I realized I had neglected my present day personal development. Like, I stopped going to the gym, I stopped reading and journaling as much, just because I don't have boundaries outside of this goal. This goal has now become my life. I feel like my survival mode was romanticized in a way, because I wanted so bad to know that this book, that this creation, that the time and energy that I spent was validated through this book. I feel like that was the same cycle that I had been experiencing, the same patterns, the self-abandonment, waiting for the permission, waiting for that proof, right? Waiting for that permission to fully show up and say, here, I have a book, right? I realized that through this book and just through connecting the experience with this book, you can't quantum leap into a new version of yourself and your life while abandoning yourself in the process. I feel like the first unconventional move is choosing yourself before you have the proof that it's worth it. I want to take you back. So before DC, I had a whole plan. I was going to batch my content. I was going to edit all of the short form videos I had batched. I wanted to schedule everything out so that I can actually be present on this trip and still follow through with the goals that I had with this book. And at the time, this was March, so I was in the middle of doing a challenge, which was called the Boring Friend Blueprint. I genuinely believed in this concept. It was a really good concept, great idea, but also was not executing at the level that I know I could. Really, it was just like my perfectionism. It didn't execute, so I felt discouraged to continue to post. With that being an issue for me, with the consistency being an issue for me, I knew that I had taken on way more than I could handle at the time. I kept making everyday to-do lists of every, priorities that I needed to get done that day. I thought that having a deadline, which was the trip, it would make it more structured in the way that I approach things. Conceptually, having that pressure of knowing, like, I have to lock in before this date, here's what I have to do it, right? As the trip got closer, I just felt more and more behind, because like I was saying, I wasn't executing the way I thought, the way I envisioned, and it just kept discouraging me. So as the days kept going on, I kept feeling more distant from the outcome. I kept questioning, like, why this backfired, because this is something that this is a method I wanted to implement before. I wanted to set a deadline, and I thought this was the perfect time to do so. I just released a product, I'm doing a challenge for the product, I ordered the physical product, like, we're getting things rolling, right? But instead it just made the gap between like what I planned and what I was actually doing feel bigger and bigger every day. I ended up never editing the videos that I batched. I never scheduled anything out. I had to admit to myself that I would literally spread myself out so thin across so many different things that I wasn't able to show up for any of them on top of a 9-to-5 job. So, I mean, I work remote, so I have a lot of flexibility in that arena, but I am still working all of this around my 9-to-5. I think really not ending up meeting any of the deadlines kind of discouraged me, because I spent so much time and mental bandwidth really on flow and focus, and I wanted the execution to be the way I envisioned, right? So I ended up avoiding all those tasks completely and just focused on making sure that none of it would bleed over into my experience on the trip. And I feel like that's the moment when I realized it didn't have to be a moment of avoidance. This could be a trip for reflection. That's when I was like, okay, I'm gonna commit to limiting my screen time, so let me bring a book and commit to finishing it. So I grabbed this book because I had it on my bookshelf for a while. I never really read through it, so I finally grabbed it. I knew that I could commit to it, given that it's not that long of a book, right? I ended up following through at the very end of my flight, or on the very end of my trip on the way home, and I came through. Needless to say, I came back from that trip feeling extremely different, a lot lighter, more clarity, not in the way that I knew I had more things to do, which I know I had more things to do, right? But in a way that the approach to those things was going to be different. I didn't know how. I just knew I could hear myself kind of process and think, and I had been holding on so tight to flow and focus to be validated before I can fully move forward releasing the full book. I didn't realize how much of it was actually like costing me, like that this obsession, this goal of mine was a process of self-abandonment, or almost. I'm glad I interrupted the cycle. I'm still working through it. I feel like my perception has been shifted when it comes to detachment, quantum jumping, and also being more efficient and productive by not necessarily doing more, but aligning. And like I said, you can equate that to different, like my obsession with my goal. I feel like that's a different form of survival. It is a form of survival mode, especially for people who are familiar with survival mode and what it does to your body. That's really the abandonment I was feeling. And the perception of detachment doesn't mean that you don't care. It doesn't mean that you're detaching from your creation itself. It's about letting the idea of that success and where you land and having that outcome, letting go of images of what it's supposed to look like. You're letting go of control and the safety of how it happens or what you can tolerate happens. And I think emphasizing that, letting go of the idea that it happens in a certain order, has really clicked for me the most, because I feel like in this book it talks about approaching things incrementally and being okay with the idea of gradual success. And that's what the concept that I was adopting when it came to flow and focus unconsciously, just because it's the safer route, you know? I think that is what kept me stuck. You know what I mean? Like, you can't quantum jump and approach things unconventionally and play it safe at the same time. Those two things just don't coexist when it comes to anything, really. You can apply this to anything, but in the sense that I'm talking about putting myself out there in a different light that I'm not acclimated to, being vulnerable in how I show up on the internet, and anyone has access to my journey, essentially. The three things that I learned from this book the most is quit trying harder, which is more of the same usually gets you the same. We know that on a conscious level, but we don't practice that on a daily level. So I'm definitely going to challenge myself to do more things. I've challenged myself to go to the gym 3 days a week. I have challenged myself to take myself on artist dates every weekend. Noticeably feel a difference in the flow of my creativity and the flow of my day-to-day life. So it's not about doing more, it's about doing things that align, not attaching to expectations or outcomes. The second one is move before you're ready, obviously. I think the preparation comes from doing, opposed to waiting everything out until it perfectly aligns, and having the most detailed business plan, having the most brand identity and ideal client profile, business operations and vendors and like software, like all of it seem overwhelming. But I think just moving through it and doing it before you feel ready or okay to do it, you are literally, like it says, focusing on ends rather than means. In this scenario, I want to emphasize that you'll find yourself brooding over potential problems and potential limitations that could be encountered. Haven't been, but could be. Those really paralyze us. Being able to move, that paralysis can't hit the moving target. The last one is, again, focus on ends rather than means. Stop seeking safety in planning, in perfectionism. In 2026, you should be able to learn more and more to trust the resources that are out there, to trust that the ability is already there. If it's not there, you can again trust those resources to build those skills, to build those abilities. I want you to move like the outcome is inevitable. The outcome is inevitable. The outcome is inevitable. Obviously, in a good way. It goes hand in hand with focusing on the means. Everything else will fall into place, and you're literally making your own map. So anyways, I wanted to share that story. I was really stressing about being behind in life, essentially. This book really practically broke it down, and I underestimated the power of this book because of the length. With that being said, I do have a free workshop coming May 15th. We are going to be deconstructing discipline and learning about the art of manipulation and how we can fall in love with discipline in a way that is going to multiply your personal effectiveness So if you would like to attend the free workshop on May 15th, go ahead and click the link down below and sign up for free. I hope to see you there, and I will see you next week.